I need some traction.
So we're going to have Hameed Shahbazi, the CEO, that's brought this company from idea to a $233 million exit to PayPal. We're going to have Gideon Hayden, co-partner and co-founder of Founders Fund, who's going to interview him. So please welcome Gideon and Hameed to the stage.
Thanks. How's everyone doing? Good? Getting close to drink hour? Which is great. I'm super excited to have Hameed here. This is a really unique story. I think very different from a lot of stories we probably heard today, and it's also a hometown story. We're both Vancouverites, so super excited to have you here. And,
thank you.
And take you through this. Maybe we could start with just what is TIO Networks? What do you guys do? And then we'll go from there.
We're a consumer. First of all, thank you. It's great to be here with you and with all you guys as well. It's a great conference. We're a consumer bill payment company. We partner with large and small and medium-sized billers. So these are companies that issue a lot of bills, wireless, cable, utility type companies. And we help them with their receivables management outside of the bank channel. So if you're paying your bill via bank, you're not paying with TIO, but if you're using a third-party mobile app, web app, if you pay in person, physically pay in cash, or with a card at a location, or if you're using a self-service automated kiosk, these are the types of channels that we cover off for the biller. And we partner with some of the largest utilities like Pacific Gas and Electric and AT&T. We're the premier cash payment processor for AT&T in the United States. So our total transaction processing volume, for example, last year on bill pay was well above 7 billion, and on all our products, probably about 9 billion. Wow. So good scale.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. I actually have some stats. 7 billion, I guess it's 9 billion in payments processed, 14 million customers, 65,000 retail locations.
Right.
So amazing story. I always like to start with understanding who the entrepreneur is behind the company. So maybe we can talk a bit about before the company was even founded. Who is Hameed, and how did that inform how you went and built your company?
So before I started TIO, I was really interested in grassroots development. So I studied engineering, but I was really enthralled with trying to make a difference, I guess. And I was actually, my biggest accomplishment when I was going to school was that I was UNICEF BC's nominee for Volunteer of the Year one year, because I was really involved with raising money and helping with programs, and I founded the UNICEF Club. And so that was, I think the yearning to make a difference was integral in my journey as an entrepreneur. And you've heard me bring this concept of an impactpreneur up. I'm really partial to that, because I think the word entrepreneur, a lot of people consider that to be about doing something that drives some kind of progress. But I think a lot of people also view entrepreneurship as just taking a risk to generate wealth or money. And I really feel like entrepreneurship should be about more than taking a risk for financial gain. And I think I identify with this concept of an impactpreneur. And I think more and more with time we're going to be seeing entrepreneurs that are seeking impact, and then that's going to be their primary goal, and then they'll end up monetizing whatever impact they end up reaching, as opposed to trying to chase money and then hoping there's some impact.
Yeah, that's super important, and something I think we wish we heard more of probably. But so take us back to '97, right? You were founded in '97, so quite a 20-year overnight success, let's call it. And set the scene, right? I mean, it was a unique time in the technology world.
Sure.
What was your unique insight? What motivated you to go and start this company?
So I was 22, turning 23. At that point in time, the internet is still being called a fad, right? It's by some people anyway. And you could see that this incredible thing called the internet was going to create a whole new series of haves and have-nots, just the accessibility to the internet. And so the first thought process was a self-service automated kiosk that would allow someone who didn't have access to internet at home or the office, the ability to interact with it in a public setting. In fact, the very first iteration of that was to create cyber cafe management software and then essentially create an automated self-service phone booth that operated as an internet booth, like a vending machine in some ways. And to us, that was kind of a form of impact because it was trying to be helpful in terms of curing what would be, at that point in time, there was a digital divide problem. Of course, the internet became very commoditized, so the next thing that we needed to do is look at this self-service automated terminal. And Hewlett-Packard bought 20% of the company in '01 and was really enthralled with what we were doing in terms of technologically deploying these self-service automated kiosks and enabling different applications. But we could see that instead of being a horizontal platform, we needed to verticalize somewhere. And in '02, we took our first bill payment. So from '02 to '06, all we did was self-service automated bill pay and really began this journey of adding all these different non-bank channels. And then really, we felt that we moved from a mandate of curing digital divide and from an impact perspective to financial inclusion. How do you allow people who are in the financial fringes to have speed and access in terms of paying their bills? And that's really what motivated us.
Yeah. Well, going after the unbanked population is an amazing opportunity, and you guys did a great job. At what point did you understand that you had a real company here and you had product market fit? Like, was there a fluctuation point where you were confident that you could double down and start spending?
Yeah, actually, it was during the time when, really in '02, where we started seeing people were actually paying their bills through these machines. Because at the beginning when we had this pretty cockamamie idea, we're going to put internet-enabled kiosks in convenience stores and people were going to put their hard-earned cash in these devices. Oh, and by the way, we're going after the low to moderate income who can't really afford to lose their money. And so the concept of a reverse ATM, an ATM that doesn't dispense cash but takes cash in, was pretty foreign. And we were told by everyone it wouldn't work. So when we started seeing queuing to use the kiosk to pay bills because of the real-time posting nature of the web-enabled kiosk and the fact that the kiosk had a bill reader that would actually read the dollar bills and all the different paper money and then post that payment to the account of the consumer in real time, we understood that, hey, our key value propositions here are speed and access, and we've got something here. And then the problem became scaling, and we had a problem there because kiosks cost thousands of dollars each. So that's why we flipped into a point of sale clerk assisted model, because we could basically add a point of sale module to anyone's point of sale. We had an API and we also had a virtual terminal. And that really that's when we became profitable, and we never really looked back after that.
That's a good segue to financing. I think in our industry, it seems like the default to finance growth is always, let's go raise venture capital. And the reality is that's not necessarily the right path for every company, right? And your company took a very unique path. You went public very early on. You went on the TSXV. Had a whole barrage of different stakeholders to worry about. Tell us about that decision, why you decided to do it, and how lessons learned from that.
Yeah. So in '97, when I was seeking seed capital, I think people were listening to the idea and they're saying, hey, I really no idea what you're doing, but you seem like a good guy. So here's some money. Oh, by the way, I'm a public guy, because that's the thing with Canada and Vancouver specifically. You have a lot of the angels are very much market driven, and back in those days. Today, I would say there's a whole new crop and breed of angels, but back then it was sort of, hey, this is how we usually work. We provide some capital, but we want to see you go public within a couple of years. And really all I did at that time was I just kept my promise, right? So took a bunch of, a couple $100,000 in seed, and then did a grand total of $1 million IPO in '99. So it wasn't an exit strategy, it was an entrance strategy. But the thing was that being public in in an exchange that didn't have excessive costs and wasn't overly burdensome. I think the TSXV is an excellent exchange because the costs are reasonable as compared to other exchanges, especially down south. And it did allow us to fundraise when we needed to. And of course, the whole idea of having liquidity for your stock, even though the stock wasn't really a liquid stock, at least if you wanted to share it or trade it, it would trade by appointment.
Yeah.
But that was helpful in us being able to acquire more investment capital. And so we were able to do have several rounds and fund the kiosk deployments and fund additional engineering growth and ultimately being public was very helpful once we really understood the value of a publicly traded company was that you get that extra currency where you could make acquisitions. You had two currencies now. You could spend your cash and you could spend your shares.
Yeah.
And that was the last acquisition that we did, which really helped us with scale. Most of the compensation that we paid for that came with stock, and so we're really pleased actually that we had the ability to do that. I don't know if we would have had that possibility had we not been public.
So talk about that a little bit more because I think we've heard a lot today of here's a couple different ways that you can increase your growth through these tactics, right? But acquisitions is another way to actually fuel growth in your company, and I think that's a tool that you put to use quite effectively.
Yeah.
So talk a bit about using that tool to fuel growth in your company and
yeah, it was a game changer for us.
Yeah.
So we made 3 acquisitions in the last 3 years, and once we'd established the business model, one of the challenges in our industry was acquiring billers took the sales cycle was huge. So if we were able to acquire companies that had biller content, brought scale, brought regional capabilities, and was accretive from a financial perspective, we were in heaven. And so we were very disciplined. We saw a lot of companies, but we were very intentional about M&A. We staffed up. We brought in a VP of corporate strategy and M&A, and it was a huge inflection point for us. And as soon as we were a company that was using our public currency in the way that we were, it also really started to impact our market cap. So we generated, we sold for 304 million Canadian, and we generated, 250 million of that in the last 3 years.
Wow.
So the first $40 million of revenue was all built organically, and from there, I think the ability, I think investors saw that we were good stewards of capital. We were very focused on buying accretively, taking cost out, and we had 8 consecutive record quarters of EBITDA. And a lot of that had to do with really a focus on capital allocation.
Yeah, that's super impressive. So you're someone who's clearly mission-driven. Seems like the organization, TIO Networks, was also mission-driven. Talk about how important culture was in scaling your company. I know it's an important topic to you. Culture
was at the very core of everything that we did, starting from the name of the company. So TIO means uncle in Spanish. It wasn't the original name of the company. The original name was InfoTouch, and the product was called TIO, the bill payment product. And then we were very inspired by the Latino user base that we were serving. And what we found is that we were an antidote, we were a solution to a problem where there were just a lot of usury practices and not a lot of pro-consumer services and support services were not very good. So we were going to be the 24/7 customer service company in English and Spanish. We were going to make sure that our products had accessibility 24/7. That's why we loved convenience stores. So I think it was a mission that was we felt that we were missionaries, not mercenaries. We always said that we would love to be missionaries with mercenary-like qualities, and I think one of the things that's a cornerstone of our culture is leadership. We don't like the word executive at TIO. The concept of a leader really inspires us. And I think that was a big deal for us. And I think, especially being a publicly traded company, you also had public shareholders. So doing the right thing was a big part of. I mean, when you ask people at TIO, what is the culture? A lot of people will tell you it's doing the right thing, which is not a very complicated thing, but I think people can make it complicated very often. And, this is one of the things that we really cared about. But I think it was a culture that was connected to the product. And if you're going to do M&A, I think you'll find that the biggest problem with that and the biggest challenge you're going to find is culture, because you're ingesting these companies with their own culture, and your culture has to be big enough, bold enough, transparent enough, authentic enough, and that was something that I think it really helped us. It was challenging for sure, but
well, do the right thing is better than free lunch and foosball, right? So
right.
which is something that is a red flag for us when we go and look at companies.
Yeah.
But so, an amazing story. 2017. Obviously, you were probably in talks with PayPal before then, but I find the process of being acquired oftentimes is one that isn't that public. So shed some light on how this happened. As you said, $304 million Canadian exit to PayPal, which is a fantastic outcome. Talk about how that came about, what that process was like, and any learnings you have in going through that.
Well, so we were patterning growth quite effectively. We were really confident in our ability to grow market cap and continue to grow the business. We had roughly around 100 million in revenue off our $7, $8, $9 billion TPV number, and had a good profitability, and we were growing. 2 years prior to the announcement date, we started talking to PayPal about commercial opportunities, and we actually did a pilot. And so I think you'll find this a lot. Is a lot of these deals start with some kind of commercial relationship where you get integrated, where you impress someone and you serve a market need, and when push comes to shove and it becomes a strategic issue for that company and they need to make a move, I think it's the devil that they know versus the devil that they don't know, right? And I'm not saying we were a devil, but I think we demonstrated that our product worked, that that culturally, and that's the other thing. We heard a lot from PayPal that we look at a lot of companies and we'll reject a perfect company from a financial perspective if we don't feel that they're a culture fit. Mm-hmm. And so just the ability for them to work with you, understand your values, how everything works. I mean, it was huge. So I think that was a big part of it. And we were, when they approached us in October and said, hey, we'd like to learn more, we decided that we would give them a closer look, obviously under NDA, and we only hired bankers when it was clear that they really wanted to do something. I think for us, as a publicly traded company, you got to be very careful when you hire bankers because it sends very, very specific signals out there. But I think that the biggest learning for us was just the fact that we earned their trust during the commercial period, and going through their compliance approvals, and it's a big company, so not all these approvals are easy. Some of them are arduous, and you're always being watched. Yeah, that's the thing to remember.
Yeah. Well, I think and it relates to like when is the right time to sell, and I think it's a combination of who is the partner and what can we achieve together. So I think that's a great point. We've got 2 minutes left here, and one last thing that I think is really interesting about you and your story is you're one of the only entrepreneurs I know who's been through 2 booms and busts in the tech cycle with one company,
right.
At the helm of that. So right now we're in this funding environment where it seems like you can raise money in a week. Talk about that. Like, what was it like to go through those booms and busts, and how has that changed your mentality today?
I think that we see it, right? I mean, I was at a lending. So for example, consumer lending is being disrupted, and peer to peer, and you see. I was at a Lendit conference about a year and a half ago, and it was incredible how many companies are there, and then to have gone through these booms and busts, you realize that a lot of them will not be there, 2, 3, 4 years out. So I think having gone through that makes you sort of more sober about these things. And I would say that's a great thing about surrounding yourself with great mentors and people who've been there, because if you can learn through other people's mistakes, that's a wonderful thing. And you're right, these things do go through those cycles. So awareness of that is absolutely critical.
Yeah. We're about done here. So thank you, Hameed. Really appreciate it. It's an amazing story, and I think in Canada we need to celebrate our successes a little bit more. So give it up for Hameed. Thank you.
I need some traction. You need some traction. Let's get some traction.